Hi, I'm Kaja and I'm here with PMC Supplies to show you a little bit about wire wrapping, and I'm going to demonstrate how you can make a pair of chandelier-like earrings with Herkimer diamonds, sterling wire, and tools that you can find all at pmcsupplies.com. So here you'll see I have an assortment of tools, and depending on what style wire wrapping you're doing, you can use several of them or you can only use 3. I'm going to be using one of my favorite tools, which is the parallel nylon coated plier. This is great for straightening the wire, especially since we're using a dead soft sterling, and I want to create a frame that has a little bit more strength to it. I'm going to take my pliers and I'm going to run it through the wire to harden it as I'm working it to create a frame that is going to be a little bit more durable, especially since it's going to be on your ear and you're going to take it on and off. So those are that tool that I like. I'm going to use from Xuron. They're based out of Maine and we have them online, and it's their tweezer nose plier. And what's great is not only are they made in the US, but they're very narrow and taper ends, so especially when you're going to be making the little slight V that I'm going to do for the earrings, I can pinch it right at the bottom and then they'll help with the tapering. And then from the same company, these are the wire shear cutters, and I like them because they have a nice flat back and they're not as bulky as these, which I also will use, but you can kind of see the difference on the top where I can kind of get in a little bit more in tighter spots with this one than I can with that one. One of my favorite tools that I'm going to be using for this project, and I use it for a lot of my other projects, is the bent nose chain plier. And why I like this is that the tapered end allows me to get a nice precise wrapping where I can get my plier into it, whereas if you have them just straight, sometimes you can't really get right in. But you know, I've used all different tools. This is just the one that I prefer. And for the round nose plier, we have 2 different ones. The blue ones here are a little bit more tapered than the green. However, I just go right to the tip anyway. So I also like a smaller plier in my hand, so I'm probably going to just use this one. But this is a really popular one, and I have this one as well. But I just go right to the end, so the tapered bit, the closer to the tip, the smaller loop you can get, and then if you go further back, it'll be wider. And that, if you can think about these wire wrapping mandrels, essentially having, instead of having it on a plier, you have it just here in your hand as like a single mandrel, and you can have the tapered part smaller here, wider here. This one I'm going to use later to show you how to make your own ear wires. However, we have all of them on pmcsupply.com, so you can always get those there if you don't want to have that extra step. I have my steel block, my hammer. You can hammer the wire for more texture. I'm going to use this later just to hammer the ear wire a little bit, because I'm going to be wrapping so much of the stone that you're not even really going to see any of the metal at the end. And then I brought this, even though we're not making rings, I always use different tools, even some random things I have on my desk to create certain shapes. And this mandrel will help me at the end to kind of give it a little bit more of a roundness that I want, and not maybe as a sharp V. So I'll show you all that. Now for making wire wrappings, you can use all different gauges, but for me, I like very delicate wrappings. So I'm going with a 26 gauge, and then as you may or may not know, the higher the gauge, the thinner the wire. So for the thicker wire base part is going to be 20 gauge. I'm using the dead soft, so I'm going to be able to mold it into the shape I want, and then I'm going to wrap it with the 26 gauge, and then my little accent pieces I will use the 24 as well. So I'm going to start with my base, and I've already had in my mind the shape that I want, the size, but I have this great mat here, and it has a measuring tape right on it, or you can just have, you know, just like a small little ruler. And I am going to measure out about like 4.5 inches. And I always give myself a little bit more, just if you realize the shape or if you make a mistake at the end, you need to cut it off. So I'm gonna get a little bit, and then I'm gonna get my tool, I'm gonna cut that. And you know, mind you, if you are using like solid 14 karat gold, you want to be precise about it. But this is sterling, and you know, a little bit of a leeway is not too bad. Okay, so now second step that I do, you don't have to do this, but I like it because I'm using the dead soft. I'm gonna gently, what I do is I'm bending the wire up and like on both sides, and this just allows the wire to harden just enough where it gives it a little bit more shape. And you can test it out on your own too. You'll see if you have wire that's not dead soft, it'll bend easier, and it'll, you know, your chandelier will get misshapen. Okay, I'm gonna try to measure it out. I'm gonna try to find the center. Now I'm going to take the little tweezer wire, and then, so because it has a small little bottom, it's gonna create like a cute little straight angle at that. And that'll be great because especially for the earrings that we're making today, I'm adding a little loop and I'm gonna dangle one of the Herkimers off of it. Okay, and then you can also take what I was saying before, just slightly bending it around. You can see how it's kind of like creates a little bit of a rounder edge to it. Okay, so now we're gonna take the 26 gauge wire, and sometimes I'll just keep it all on a spool if I have a small one that I can wrap around, but I want one continuous flow. But if I run out of wire, the great thing about wire wrapping is you can attach another wire and coil it right next to it, and you don't have to even worry about seeing the seam on that. So I'm going to take a wire, and I'm probably gonna just do about 2 feet and give myself a little bit more, because the excess then I'll be able to use for my little wire wrappings at the bottom, because I'm going to make my own little head pins, or you can always get your own. I'm gonna start from the bottom and wrap it up both ways, because I'm gonna make a little loop to dangle a little stone. But you can always just take your spool and then just continue, like wrap from the top all the way down and around. Okay, so I've kind of just separated it in half, not really making it a tight frame. And I'm going to start from the bottom part, and I'm gonna start wrapping. Now, brought these over so you can use these, and there's the different magnifying lenses. You can get a nice close-up visual of what you're doing without straining your eye. And it just magnifies it just right. See, it's great. And this way you can kind of get a more precision wrappings on it. So I'm going to start with putting on my stone. I'm using little Herkimer diamonds because they're one of my favorite. These stones are drilled, and you find them only in Herkimer County in New York. And so I think that's cool. But you can use gemstones. You could also do two-tone wire, and you can kind of just create whatever design you want. So I'm gonna start first. I have one on, but I'm gonna do 4 or 5 coils in between each one. And so I'm going to take my wire, and what I'm doing is I'm going to wrap the thin 26 gauge wire around the 20 gauge. And so you're just taking your finger and it's guiding up and around the next coil. And then I'm gonna slide my stone on it, and I'm just gonna place it so that it's on the outside. And I just hold it with my finger, and then I just continue to wrap. And now if I come on here, I can get a better view of what I'm doing. And now I'm gonna wrap down, and I'll show you how I'm gonna make a little loop. I'm gonna take one of my round nose pliers, and I'm gonna make a small little loop, and so that the loop is incorporated into the coil. Okay, and I'm just going to check and see how I'm doing. Okay. And it's kind of hard to tell, but now you can see like how I have a small little loop started, and then at the end we can dangle the stone. So I'm just going to now continue wrapping around, adding my stones. Okay, so now I've completed this wrapping right now, and I feel like I'm going to leave the rest of this exposed with the thicker wire, but I'm gonna just try to like slightly reshape it, but I'm gonna cut the remaining of the 26 gauge wire, and I'm gonna cut it as close as I can to the coil that I've made, and then I'll take my bent nose pliers and bend the little tails, which I call them, around the other wire so that you can't see where I finished it. And so it's not the exact shape yet, but that is the great thing about working with the wire is that you can manipulate it by just bending it slightly, and that's another reason why I'll use the dead soft too. Okay, so that's pretty good. And now I'm going to complete it by bending the one side around the other to make the loop. And what I'm going to do is I kind of make sure that one length is a little bit longer than the other, and the one that's longer is going to be the one that I'm going to loop around to actually put onto the ear wire. And so then I'm going to take my plier and I'm going to just bend it. When I move it with my hands, it'll be the angle that I want, and then I'm going to wrap the other wire around it. Okay, so there you go. You see I wrapped it, and then that tail I'm going to cut. And always make sure that this flat side is flush against where I'm cutting, because then it will kind of get as close as I can. And then again, I'm bending this around. And with wire wrapping, you can make any shape. You can use any of the mandrels to make different coils. You can fan it out. You can make like S-shape infinity signs. This one, I'm just showing you the basics of wrapping around using certain tools and incorporating all the little techniques. I'm going to use the wire wrapping mandrel to make my coils. I'm going to use the last little tapered piece. I'm going to use the 24 gauge instead of using the 26, which is a firm shape but not so thick of a wire like the 20 gauge. And so I'll give myself a little extra to hold on the one side, and then I just start making a tight wrap, making sure that each coil sits right alongside, and then I'm just going to snip the other side, and then again with my chain nose plier, I'm going to make sure that the end of this wire incorporates back into the coil. You can bend it out. The two, and then I just want to make sure that the coil is back in its spot so that the wire finish continues with the coil. Okay, so now I have my two, and then this coil will eventually go on top of here, but I'm going to add the chain next. But you think, how am I going to attach a chain? There are a few different ways, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the extra wire, and in this case I'm going to start with making with my round nose plier a small little loop, twist it so it's on its side, and so that would, I'm going to incorporate right there. But first I have to put my chain on. Okay, so now I have the chain set, and I will wait until cut it until I figure out the exact length. Now I'm going to hold it up top where I want it, and I'm going to wrap the one side starting from the top. I'll do nice tight wraps just 3 times around. And let me just put my little lens on. Yep, that's much easier. It's such a great look, isn't it? Okay, see how the one side now is already wrapped around it. And then I'll do the same thing on this side. And now I'm gonna use my cutting shears, and then with my bent chain nose, I'm gonna wrap that little bit of the tail around the wire. So you can see that now I can decide, you know, do I want it longer or shorter? But I think what I'm gonna do is have it so it kind of lays right where the coils end. And so I'm gonna cut it right on one of the links. And then for the next one, I will count out exactly the same amount of chain length, and then I'll just cut that. And so now we're gonna wire wrap a stone here and a stone there. As the years go by with jewelry, I become more ambidextrous with my hands, so you'll notice that sometimes I'm using it with my left hand, my right hand, and I found that I use the hand that makes it easier for me. But you just flip the tool, you just flip the piece around to get to the right side or the left side that you need to use it. And I'm pretty much done with this, so I'm gonna take that off. Okay, there, that's the length I want it. It's attached. So now I have that one coil, okay, put that on. And then I'm just gonna do a little loop. I'm going to use my pliers, and these are the round nose, and I'm gonna bend it up and around. And you want it to go under. And then again, you want to make sure that you make a nice little coil part. And then this I'm just going to finish off because I made this a little bit too short. And then we'll reshape it to make sure that it's all even. And now I'm going to use the scrap 26 gauge wire. You can also use the sterling little head pins, but because I don't want to waste this, and I also like making everything myself. We're going to make the little dangled wire wrappings for the top and the bottom. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take one of my little stones, slide it on. I'm just going to take the bent chain nose plier, grab the tip of it, bend it, and make a tiny little fold. So it kind of just makes like a little tapered drop. Okay. And I'm going to now wire wrap this one by taking the plier, holding the wire around the plier, but I'm not finished yet because if I just left it, the loop is not perfect. It angles this way, and that is a big pet peeve of mine. So I stick my plier back in, and then with my wrist, I gently shift my wrist towards me, and now you can see how it bends it slightly just to create a perfect loop. And that way the wire wrapping will be nice and straight. Take my cutters, and I give myself just a little extra tail of wire so that way I can slide it on. And now I take 2 pliers. I'm going to just take my round nose plier to hold the loop as I take my other plier and I grab the tip of the tail, I call it, and then I ever so gently wrap it up and around the top of the stone, and so it creates its own little coil. So I have the tail. I'm going to cut just the tail. I'm going to now bend the tail to finish the coil so you can't see where my wire ended. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing on top. Find my stone, put through. I'm gonna give it a little bend, and I'm really just trying to grab the tip of it so that it's very minimal wire showing. Okay, again, I go all the way to the end. That is why I like using this more narrow, tapered nose plier. I want a nice, tight, small little wrap. Okay, so we can see what it looks like so far. Now we have to just do the ear wires. Now for this, you can just go on to PMCSupplies.com and you can just order the sterling ear wires like I have right here. And this way, if you're doing multiple pieces, you don't want to have to worry about you creating your own. You have them right here ready to go. However, I like making my own. So I'm going to use the 20 gauge wire. And again, because it's dead soft, I'm going to work it with my nylon coated plier to just harden it up just ever so slightly. And I'm going to do about 2.5 inches. And then you can always cut down to the length that you want. Okay, now I'm going to take the larger wire wrapping mandrel, and you'll see at the end, this is perfect. It's the same exact shape that I want to fit into the lobe of the ear. I kind of bend it up and around, and already you can see that it's going to start mimicking that shape that you're looking for. And now I'm going to take the round nose plier, grab the tip of it, and I wrap it up and over. Okay, you see that already? Now, so the bottom, I like to put it right back on here, bend it, and then I take my plier. You can use this round or the chain nose, but the round ones I'm just going to use because it's, for this I like the straighter length, the straighter one versus the bent, and I just give it just that little notch. Now, before it goes into the ear, we have to file this down, sand it down. It's too rough to go into the ear. You have to remember, since you're making it yourself, you need to make sure everything is nice and filed down. So I'm going to get one of the sanding sticks. You may or may not know they come in different grits. I'm going to go with one a little bit coarser so that I can create like a nice rounded edge. And I kind of just go up and around. And I just kind of make sure that it's nice and smooth. Okay, perfect. I'm just gonna hammer the end right here to kind of give it a little bit more design on it. Okay, and then I just go back one more time. So you see that you can either make your own, and then you can kind of dictate the length, or you can just, just purchase that. Now you just take your plier, the chain nose plier, and when you're opening up, if you're opening up jump rings or opening up one of the ones that you purchase online from us or ones that we make here, you never open a jump ring from side to side. You open it from front to back. This way it remembers its shape. So I'm opening it from the side, and then I'm going to slide my piece on. And then again, I just grab the tip of it, and then I bend it back into place. And there you have it, your basic 101 wire wrapping. So all the tools here that you've seen, you can go right onto PMCSupplies.com, and guess what? Free shipping. If you want to see more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and see you next time. Bye. How do they look? You can make these too. Are they cute? Yeah?